Welcome to today's episode of Financial Fluency. Today I'm here with Jessica DeBry from Jessica DeBry Coaching, and you also have She Club Monthly, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining me. It's really nice to see you here.
I am so excited to be here, Jen. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So you help women leave jobs they hate and start their own businesses, right?
That's correct.
Do you have your own leaving a job I hate story to tell us?
Yeah. So let's just jump right in.
Let's go.
So, it's funny that you mentioned that because growing up, I always thought that I wanted to climb the corporate ladder. So I did everything to get there. I got my bachelor's degree. I went back to school. I got my MBA because I always pictured myself as being that woman in the three-piece suit, with a briefcase, walking up to my corner office. And so I had taken all those steps because that's what I really wanted. And then I found myself in a position where I was working in a department that I really loved, and it was a large company, and that department got completely dissolved. And so I was forced out of that department in a role that I was really enjoying into a department that was mainly customer service oriented, which, hey, customer service jobs are great, but I had worked my way up with my master's degree, and it just really felt like a dagger to the heart to me. And it turned into something where every day I hated waking up. I hated my alarm going off. I woke up with a sense of dread. And, I said to myself, I gotta stop this. And for me, going through that experience, I realized that I didn't want to get another job because I knew I wasn't safe. I knew that the only way to really create something that would bring me joy and bring me happiness and fill into my strengths was to create that dream job, right? So I became an entrepreneur. And long story short, that first entrepreneurial journey, I failed. I had to go back to work.
What was that? What was the attempt?
Yeah. So the first time around, I got into wellness coaching. I had just made a big dietary shift in my own life that I had mainly gotten plant-based with my diet, and I was just really getting into holistic kinds of things. And I had actually women at my corporate job coming to me and asking me for advice. So I thought this is a great parlay into something that fills into what I'm naturally good at the time. And so I started food blogging. I started doing wellness coaching. I started running online wellness programs. And I was very successful from the beginning. And I always say, looking back, that might have been my downfall because I didn't really have the struggles up front. I had a good amount of clients up front. I was featured on various online publications like Mind Body Green, and it was really quick. It's almost like I didn't have to work for it. And after about 18 to 24 months, it really fizzled out. Kind of the final straw was we were going into the holidays, and I was already kind of lean on clients. And I lost my two biggest clients because we were going into the holidays, and that was the final straw for me. I realized I wasn't going to have enough money to sustain me. And in all reality, I hadn't built up the systems I needed to be sustainable. And at the time, oh my gosh, it was the worst thing ever. I didn't leave my house for weeks. I was ashamed. I didn't want to tell anyone else I was going back to work. I cried myself to sleep every night. My husband was like, what the heck is the matter with you? Everyone has to go to a job. But for me, it was so, it was the lowest of the low. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs listening maybe can relate. Maybe they think, gosh, if I have to go back to a job, it's the worst thing ever. And I want everyone to know that for me, it ended up being a blessing in disguise because it gave me the mental clarity and it took the pressure off to really find out what was important to me. And I spent 15 months working, and eventually I started doing the entrepreneurial stuff on the side. And that's why I'm so big on side hustling and having a side business. Because when I first gave it up, when I first went back to a job, I said, you know what, I'm done with the entrepreneur thing. I can't deal with it anymore. I'm not cut out for it. I don't like it. But I realized very quickly that I wasn't fulfilled unless I was creating. So like I said, it ended up being a blessing in disguise, and I completely kind of changed my business model around as well, changed my focus, changed my industry. And now I'm just in the best place ever. I'm so happy I went through that failure because it really made me a stronger individual.
Well, that's good. What job did you get in between the two things?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question, because the job that I got was a job that I never had before. And I was a marketing communication specialist, and I was working specifically for an entrepreneur, which I'd never worked for. I've always worked for big time, companies and corporations, corporate America, and working for one person. And it was still a company. He had 100 employees. So it was still an office setting, and I was still in a cubicle, but he was the face of the company, and being able to shadow him and his vision, that was really what lit my entrepreneurial fire again. And the reason why I said I'm so glad that you asked what I did is because before that, I had always wanted to do marketing, but I was never really able to score a job in marketing. And I always thought, well, maybe I didn't like working 9 to 5 because it wasn't really in a job that I loved. And when I first started working in my job, I thought, well, this is it. This is what it's supposed to be. This is why, I went back to work, because I'm meant to have this job. And I needed to satisfy that feeling that even though I was in a job that was completely perfect for me on paper, I still felt incomplete in my heart and in my soul. And I still felt like I wanted more. That was that last checkbox saying, Jessica, yes, you do need to pursue that entrepreneurial pathway. And so again, like I said, it really was a blessing in disguise.
Interesting. Do you mind if I ask what industry the entrepreneur was in?
Yeah. So he might even be listening to this. So his name is Tom Ferry. And of course, I've talked about him before. His name is Tom Ferry, and he's actually a coach, and it's a coaching company for real estate professionals. So for real estate agents that want to grow their business, and he's @1 in the field. And can I just say, he was an incredible boss, and it was an incredible company to work for, just to see what he's built. Because he has, at the time I left, he had about 130 coaches working in his coaching organization. Yeah, so it was great to see kind of the expansion of what a coaching company can do, and see it from a different standpoint. I mean, I've never worked in real estate. My sister has. So it was never a conflict of interest when I was side hustling with my business. So that was good. But the concepts are still the same with any coaching. You're always going to get into mindset. You're always going to get into systems. So, I am really big on things happening for a reason. And I know I was meant to work there. It was just meant to show me that corporate wasn't my thing.
Okay. And did you learn things from working for him that then helped you start your new business?
Yeah, I think the big thing I learned was constant innovation, and always stepping outside your comfort zone. So I helped a lot with his social media, and, as soon as something went new, like Instagram Live, the day it went live, he was like, I want to do it. Let's do it. And to be around the type of individual that just pushes themselves into the brand new thing, when so many of us as entrepreneurs, we're so addicted to, well, let me research it, or let me watch someone else do it first, right? I know that's my natural tendency. I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned from him.
Just jump in with both feet?
Both feet. Don't even think about it. You kind of learn as you go, right?
Well, that's great. So then how long did you stay there, and what happened when you left?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I knew pretty quickly after I started working there, within a couple months, that I didn't want to stay there forever. I was there for a total of 15 months, and I was actively building my side hustle in my downtime. I couldn't even if I wanted to, because again, I was in a cubicle, right? So people walking by all the time. But I was actively building my online business for about 14 out of those 15 months.
Okay. And what is the new business that you have now? You started working on helping people get jobs they hate.
Yeah. So I just had a couple of clients that I was taking on throughout those 14 or 15 months. And then really my big step was I hosted a summit. So that was like a really big thing for me, an online summit. Getting into that while working a full-time job. And this is why primarily I like to coach and mentor women with full-time jobs, because I've been there. I know what it's like. And I think I always tell women the benefit to building your entrepreneur business while you're still in a full-time job is when you're able to do it successfully, when you're able to build the side business successfully, it actually sets you up for a business that doesn't need to be done full time. Because if you can learn how to build a side business in 10 hours a week, yes, it's going to take you longer than if you had full time to do it. But if you can learn how to scale yourself, how to monetize, how to get visible online, how to build your tribe, how to build your email list while you're still working full time, then once you go full time with entrepreneurship, you are completely set up for really not only the business that you want, but the life that you want, to have the time with your family that you know you deserve. I mean, even now that I left my job, I left in April, I almost find myself thinking, should I be doing something? Like, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. And I know you can probably relate to this, is that our jobs are never done. So we kind of have to have we have to have that moment where we say, okay, I'm just going to stop this today. Right. But for me, it was a wonderful feeling to know that I had built up my income enough. I had my various income streams coming in, online courses and clients and stuff like that, that let me leave and then also set me up for really the business that I had always wanted. I didn't have that the first go around because, I didn't know that it was possible. But when you're side hustling, you have to be very strategic with your time. You have to be focused because we only have a certain amount of 24 hours in a day.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So if someone's listening who does still have a job, but wants to do something on the side, but feels like, what do I even do? How do I even get started? How would you help them?
Yeah. So I work primarily with other coaches and creative entrepreneurs. And the first thing I have them do is really narrow down on the one thing that we're going to be able to scale right away. So whether it's a coaching program, turning a one-on-one into group coaching so that you're scaling your time, or you're creating a course. But really the first thing I have them work with before all that is I have them map out their time. So I use it's blanking right now. I call it the time pocket formula, which it's a worksheet that I work with my clients where I walk them through it. And with the time pocket formula, I have them completely write out all of their hours. This is when I wake up. This is when I get ready. This is when I go to work. This is my, my lunch hour, etc. And then what we do is we circle all the pockets that exist where it's at least 30 minutes to an hour that they can dedicate to their business. One of the things that helped me the most, hands down, it's one of the things that really changed everything in my business for the better, is adopting a morning routine. I work with so many women that they don't want to sacrifice their nights because they have families, they have kids, they have husbands. And I'm the same way. I don't have kids, but I have a husband that, needs to be cooked for. Bless his heart. He can't boil water. But when I adopted a morning routine, it completely changed everything because I was so focused and it was quiet. I woke up, I had the whole house, well, not the whole house, but my little corner of the office to work on what I needed to work on. And that was really big when I was working on my summit, because it took so many moving parts that I had to have my quiet, focused time, and that morning routine was part of it. So to answer your question, it would be number one, to go through the time pocket formula, circle those pockets. I usually have them identify 5 to 15 pockets, and then
Per week?
Yeah, per week. Yeah. The goal is to figure out 10 hours that you can dedicate to your business. And 10 hours might sound like a lot, but we have 168 hours in the week, and 40 of those, if you work full time, that puts you down to what? 128. And then of course, sleeping 8 hours a night and everything like that. But I think a lot of people forget about the extra hours, especially on Saturday mornings or maybe a Sunday evening. And it really is easy to squeeze in an hour in the morning if you're focused and dedicated and you really want to make this happen. So after I walk them through the time pocket formula, then we look at, with those 10 pockets of time, what are we filling in there? So every week we're looking at the 3 big goals that are going to get you where you want to be. So we identify what those goals are. So if you're trying to scale a coaching business, then we look at, what do you need the help most with? Do you need to build your email list? Okay, so let's get you out there and visible. Let's do a guest post. Let's do a podcast. Let's have you start your YouTube channel, and then taking those and putting the tasks in those time slots, because it's a completely different ball game working out your weekly schedule if you're working full time versus if you're building your business full time. So it's finding your time pockets, filling out those tasks, and then kind of tweaking it as we go. But I always tell all female entrepreneurs that are working full time is that you have to have something in your business that's completely passive. You have to, because if we're going to work on scaling you, then you have to have something where, hey, someone does your email list, and then you might have a funnel that offers them something. But your time is so important that we have to get you to the point where you're making money, even if it's 10 a.m. and you're in a meeting with your boss. So, yeah.
That sounds good for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
What's usually the first passive income piece that you work on with somebody?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's usually something of a lower price offer. I'm sure obviously tripwires are so big right now, which is like, do you have a tripwire in your business?
No, but we're setting one up.
Yeah, I don't have one in my business. So I feel like one of those people that's, not walking the walk, but I help women with it because I'm tweaking mine as well. So I'm right there with you.
We always keep learning, right?
Exactly. It's a constant learning process. And again, our work is never done. So yeah. But that's one of the things that I always recommend is starting with some sort of tripwire, because as it's much easier to sell to someone that's already kind of part of your insiders group and have purchased it from you in the past. So a lower price offer. So and it really depends on what your lead magnet is and what your opt-in is. So, but if your lead magnet is a cheat sheet or a worksheet, then the tripwire is going to be like an ebook or, a mini course, but something that can be done quickly. So my biggest thing is, if you were working full time and you and I started working together, then I would say, okay, Jen, let's look at this weekend, because this weekend we're going to get done with that opt-in that you have and your tripwire product. So, because it's moving quickly to set the systems up so that beyond that, we can just scale. So those are the biggest things that I work with in the beginning, because then down the line, we can build out the higher price coaching programs. But in the beginning, it's really getting them started with something, because when you're sitting at work and you see a $27 sale come in or an $87 sale come in, it is the biggest and best feeling ever, because you're like, heck, I'm sitting here and I'm making a paycheck and I'm building my empire on the side. It's very empowering.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. So we get them a tripwire, they start working on something, they've done their time pockets, they figure out what they can do. Oh, what's your morning routine?
I'm so glad you asked. And by the way, for anyone that is listening to this or watching this video and thinking, ugh, I could never be a morning person, I just want to point out that I was never a morning person. Like when I was in college, I would work on papers until 4 a.m. and then sleep till 10. And it was the same my first go around as an entrepreneur. I actually liked the fact that I didn't have an alarm. Heck, I was very prideful about that. I would tell people like, I never want to wake up to an alarm again. But again, when you're working full time, you kind of have to make some sacrifices if you want to build a business. And I found that I love being a morning person. So I read Miracle Morning. I totally recommend that book by Hal Elrod if you've never read it. And so my morning routine is this. I wake up. To me, early now to me is different than early when I was working full time. When I was working full time, my morning routine started at 4:30, which to me sounds crazy now, because now that I am an entrepreneur full time, early to me is 6:30 or 7 o'clock. So, but I do wake up with an alarm, and I try to get out of bed right away. But if I'm going to sit there for a second and do a little bit of scrolling, which I don't recommend, but I'm just being real with you, I limit it to 10 minutes. I get out of bed. immediately hydrate. So at least 20 ounces of water. It just kind of, just invigorates me. And then what I'll do is actually, let me show you. Sorry, I should have had this already.
Well, you didn't know I was going to ask.
I love this. I don't know if it's backwards, but it's called the 5-minute journal.
Okay.
And for anyone that wants to journal but is not in the habit of journaling or needs prompts, this is really big. So again, it might be backwards, but it just gives you prompts. It gives you, every morning you write down what you're grateful for. You write down 3 things that you're going to work on, and then you write down your daily affirmation. And then at night, it gives you 3 prompts of 3 things that happened today. And hey, what could I have done today to make it even better? So I do this after I drink my water. And then I'll do a quick 5-minute visualization. I'm not into meditation. I've always been telling myself that I need to get into it, but I do visualization instead. And I sit in a silent place and I visualize, where do I want to be a year from now, 5 years from now? So the water, the journal, the visualization, and then I go be active for 20 minutes. So I'll walk outside for 20 minutes. I'll do a quick workout DVD. And then I'll make a green smoothie and I'll make a cup of coffee and I'll sit down and start my workday.
That sounds really good. I like that. And you know what? I think visualization, a lot of meditations involve visualization. So I think that sounds like it would cover the same, slot in a morning ritual.
That's what I'm telling myself. So
yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I read The Miracle Morning too. And actually, when you said 168 hours earlier, I couldn't help wondering, did you read Laura Vanderkam's book, The 168
I
Hours?
have, yes. Anything involving time management, I'm there.
Yeah, I love that book too. We'll have to put a link to it so people know what we're talking about in case they haven't read it. But yeah, when I read that book, I was stunned at how many hours we actually do have when you put all those little pockets of time together. And it did make me start using the time, like when I go pick up my kids, I pick them up myself. My daughter has special needs because I always want to talk to her aide. My daughter's not verbal, but I would have this period of time in order to get in the line and get into the handicap spot. I had to get there early, but I started, instead of just scrolling or doing something on my phone, I started being like, oh, I'm trying to do 100 books a year challenge. I will read. This will be my reading time while I sit in the car and wait for my daughter. And it helped me put together, like the pockets you're talking about. But sometimes mine would be more like 15 minutes or 20 minutes or like waiting in the doctor's office or something. But I just started making sure that I had, if I couldn't do anything else, I would at least read.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm really big on audiobooks as well. Were you reading or were you listening?
So it depends. I always have both with me. So I have my audible.com on here. Yes. The only way I manage 100 books a year challenge is audiobook. I have to do 1 a week, and then a Kindle or a paper book. My problem with paper books is this is my little reading spot here when I take breaks in my office, but I don't always carry a book with me, a regular book. Though this one, I was just working on this one, which is
that
nice.
Looks good.
Yeah, it just, this sticks in my purse fine. But my purse gets so full, because can I show you my planner?
Yes, I need to see it, yes.
This is the one I'm using right now. I totally love it.
Ooh.
I did try the 90-day year planner. Did you use that one?
I did not use it. I didn't order it, and I want to get an honest review from you.
Okay, here's my honest review.
Yes.
I got it. Oh, you can see it's a little cup stained there, but and I used it for 90 days. My issue is my purse is this big.
It's big. That's a big planner. Yeah.
I know. This fits in my purse fine, and it's 90 days. See, they're about the same thickness. This is a briefcase size, I guess. So I'd have it at home, and I would come back and fill things in. But because it has 15-minute increments, I could, if I was at home working on it, I would be filling them in. But there were plenty of times where I was working somewhere else or traveling or doing something else. And see those little dots?
Yes.
Those are 15-minute increments. And I kind of loved doing that in some ways, but in some ways it was too often. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not billing every 15 minutes. So to track my time, it did at first, especially it kept me more on task. So I'd be like, oh, I'm going to do this solidly. I use the Pomodoro, which is 25 minutes, but so I'd be 2 Pomodoros and a break is 2 of those little 15-minute increments. But I was like, it got a little too much. So I liked it, but I did want to offer them a few suggestions, particularly for women who have purses that they don't want to carry a massive, like, legal sized pad around, So there were things I definitely liked about it, but I've gone back to my old standby, which is the Savor the Success daily action planner. What planner do you use? I'm just curious.
So I use the content planner by Kat Gaskins. She is, I actually met her through my summit that I hosted. I hosted a summit that was all about Instagram just because I love learning about Instagram. So she had built out her Instagram following, and then she created the content planner. And I like it only because it has like all of the dates for certain holidays throughout the year. And it's very good if you're trying to visually plan out your content, but I'm always looking for suggestions. I'm like you, I'm constantly changing. So, and I think that's such an entrepreneur thing, because we all have shiny object syndrome, because we all are idea people. So I'm like you, I'm constantly changing. I showed this thing, but realistically, I don't use it religiously every single day. In fact, I'll use it for like 2 weeks straight, and then I won't use it for 2 weeks. But it's whatever works. It's whatever works.
Totally.
But I wanted to bring up something that you just said, because I thought it was really important, and that was the importance of reading. And I get asked a lot, what was the difference this time around in your entrepreneurial journey versus last time around? And I always say my mindset changed. And one of the reasons that my mindset was able to change is because when I was working full time, I put that as a priority. And I was just like you. I utilized that car time. I was at the point where I was listening to so many books that I was going through my Audible, 1 book a month. But it became
that doesn't work for me either.
Right? It's not enough.
I do one a week.
Good for you. Do they have more than the one? Like, do they have an upgraded membership?
So here, there are a couple ways you can do this. Yes, you can if you get the platinum, it's $240 and you get 24 books all at once. You can load it up if you want, or you can, space it out. And so that holds me for a while. But then what I discovered is there are a lot of books where you can go to buy the Kindle and you can add the Audible narration, and it's cheaper than buying the full audiobook if you've run out of your credits. But a lot of times they let you buy like 3 more credits at a time. I just did that the other day where it said special 3 credits for $9 each or 9 something each. And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I do spend quite a lot on books. But I had a period after having my kids where I didn't read for a while, where I just really, like, I'd start a book. This was actually it's a rocking chair that I nursed my kids in. That's why I ended up moving it down here, because it's so good for where your elbows sit. But I would read a book and set it down, and then because I had infants, I would lose track of it, and I just felt like, God, it's been so long since I actually just read a book. And then for a little while, I was only doing nonfiction, and I really missed fiction. So now I try to each week do one of each. I try to split it up, because I feel like when you read fiction, different parts of your brain get excited, and storytelling and adventure and action. Whereas if you're only reading nonfiction, then it's inspiring. Some nonfiction stories are really inspiring, but I feel like a different part of my brain needs exercise too.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I had a friend that tells me he likes to read nonfiction in the morning. Like, that's part of his day, or during he was at my last job, or during his lunch break. And then he'll read fiction before he goes to bed.
Me too. I do my fiction at night. And I'll admit, I really like YA fiction. So certain books I read with my kids. So like, the whole Harry Potter series, we read that together. And, with Peter Pan and lots of the sort of younger ones we'll do together. And then once they're going off to sleep, I'll pop my headphones in and then listen. I've been listening to a lot of Neil Gaiman this year, who I never knew who he was until I read Amanda Palmer's The Art of Asking. Do you know who Amanda Palmer is?
I haven't read that book. I'll have to add it to my list.
You should check it out. So
I feel like we're going to put a bunch of links to books under this.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of book links on this.
Yes.
When I was in college, she was in a band called the Dresden Dolls, and I really liked her. And then she was the first person ever to have I think it was either Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign that raised more than $1 million for an album. Wow. And so she did a TED Talk on it, and then she wrote the book all about the art of asking. And she married Neil Gaiman. And I thought of him just as like a genre fiction fantasy guy. Like I didn't know anything about him. And then I realized, oh, he wrote for Doctor Who, which I'm a closet Doctor Who fan. I like sci-fi a lot too. And at the beginning of the year, I bought my first book by him and I was like, oh my gosh, I love these books. So escapist fantasy, dark fantasy, but really good stuff. Anyways, that's my commercial for Neil Gaiman. But
I love it. We all need more book recommendations. I can't get enough. I have a problem. I really do. I'll just continue to order and I can't get through my books fast enough. So I love that. Now I know what I'll be adding to my list. So thanks, Jen.
Well, the good thing about both Audible and Kindle is you can queue them.
It's
so
true.
Sometimes I try to stop myself before I buy a new book and check how many are in the queue that I haven't read, and try to catch up a little bit. Yeah. It can be a problem.
I love it.
So, but through reading all these extra books, the second time around, that really helped you. What did it help you with?
Yeah, well, to be very honest, I wasn't a big reader the first time around. And I think it's because after I finished my master's degree, I was really burnt out on just reading. But in all reality, I was never a big reader in college. The only reading I did was my textbooks. So, I never kind of went down that road because I always kind of related reading to just, the thick research books. And it was just, it just wasn't joyful for me. So, I got into reading, especially Audible books, when I was working full time again. And that's what really changed my mindset. And then I think the tipping point for me was, I went to a Tony Robbins event, because I realized, gosh, these books are helping me. And I was getting into the point where I was investing in myself. And this is another tip that I always like to tell my side hustle entrepreneurs is, think of your job as your angel investor. You're in a great point in your life because you know that you're building something bigger, and your investors that are going to help you weather the storm is that paycheck that you're getting every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I used that and I leveraged that into the 90-day year that we're both a part of. I used that to go to Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. And ultimately it was at Unleash the Power Within that I realized that I need to leave my job. Like I'm at the point where I do have it built up enough that I can financially. But the thing is, you're never fully 100% ready mentally. I don't think that you are. I tell the women I work with, like, realistically, you'll never get to that point. You just kind of have to listen to those nudges. And of course you have to be able to pay your bills.
Yeah.
But, my old boss will tell you that I blame Tony for Jessica leaving the company. I came back and a week later, I put in my 2 weeks notice. And I'm getting chills just thinking about it because it was so transformational for me. And it started with the books. It started with realizing that, gosh, like I can change my life. And the books really opened up a world for me that had never been open before. And leveraging that time to go to books. And then again, like I mentioned, leveraging my paycheck to go towards other things that were going to help me mentally and in my business.
Well, that's exciting. That's good to know. Okay, so we're getting close to our time, but I was just going to recap our tips real quick because I think we went pretty far afield with the books part. So, so to recap, if you guys are interested in leaving the job you're at and building a business like Jessica's done, or with Jessica perhaps, let's see, the first thing was the time pocket calculator or worksheet.
Formula. I call it TPF, time pocket formula.
Time pocket formula, finding those pockets of time. Then having a morning routine or a routine time that you work on things. And then putting together your passive income. Were those the tips pretty much? Like an ebook, download sheet, something small? Yeah,
those are the big things. And I think those are a good starting off point. I never like to give too much at once, but definitely it's figuring out that time. I always say that there's really three main components, and you covered those there. There's three main components for any female entrepreneur that's kind of side hustling with her business. And that is figuring out when you're going to get your stuff done. So that's the time pocket formula. So getting stuff done. It's building your brand and building your audience. And monetizing. And those three together, within my first call or strategy session with any entrepreneur, I know exactly where you're lacking. And then we work on that. But for the most part, it's usually always time, like they're not devoting enough time or they're not knowing where they can find the time. Or it's the leveraging or I'm sorry, it's building their audience, building their traffic, building their email list. And they all kind of tie into each other. And as you kind of grow, you'll find you'll always lack in one point. So it's always just finding where that is.
Okay, great. Well, those are some great tips. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And if anyone wants to find you, where do they go?
Yeah, so they can go to jessica-debry.com, or I'm also at Jessica DeBry on Instagram. Or I have a brand new business project that is just launching this month, and that is She Club Monthly. She Club Monthly, She stands for Side Hustle Entrepreneur. She Club Monthly is a monthly subscription box for side hustle entrepreneurs. It's the perfect complement to female girl bosses that are still juggling a 9-to-5 job. And the reason why I created it is because I saw the need for a physical product to be sent, especially for side hustle entrepreneurs, because, you know, as you know, sometimes being an entrepreneur, especially if you're working as an entrepreneur full time, it can be lonely. And, you know, you're in a great position because you have a podcast and you're talking to amazing entrepreneurs all the time. And of course we have clients and other business stuff we work with.
That's part of why I do it though, because I'm in rural Arizona. I'm very geographically isolated. So yeah, but you're right. It gets lonely. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it though. I love that you were like, yeah, I kind of did it for selfish reasons, but
I need to talk to people.
I love it. I love it. But what I was going to say is, you know, it gets lonely as an entrepreneur, but I think what's even harder is when you're working full time and you're surrounded 40 hours a week with people that don't understand the entrepreneur mentality. So that's why I wanted something that would be sent out, delivered to your doorstep every single month, filled with goodies that are really for the female entrepreneur, plus access to monthly online digital training, specifically, like I said, for the side hustle entrepreneur. So long-winded way, they can also find out about that at sheclubmonthly.com.
Okay, that sounds great. I'll be sure to put all of that and all the books we talked about into the show notes. And thank you so much for being here with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay, and I'll see you online. Bye.
See you online.